But the first thing I want to show you guys is how to actually make the royal icing. So when I make our cookies, I make them with royal icing instead of like a buttercream because it has a nice shine and it's solid. It doesn't squish or anything like that. Royal icing is really 2 ingredients, eggs and sugar. So it's pretty simple. And I'm going to show you a little bit on how to make that. We're going to make some flood icing. We're going to make some piping icing, and then we'll get to the decorating. So I'll show you guys that as well. So I'm going to start with just 3 egg whites. Now I'm using pasteurized eggs. You'll see the P on the egg. That means that they've been heated just enough to make certain they don't have any salmonella in them, so we can eat the eggs. So especially if you ever want to eat like your cookie dough before you bake it, use pasteurized eggs. You can get them at Harris Teeter. So first thing I'm going to show you is how to properly crack an egg, which I know sounds odd, but it's really important here. So you don't want to ever crack on the side of your bowl. You're just going to end up with shell and egg everywhere. It's no good. So you want to make sure it actually crack on the countertop. And you don't want to do like a light tap, but you also don't want to slam it. It's kind of an in-between. Show it who's boss so that you get a nice crack. And then you just push down in the center. Your hands are going to get a little messy. And you're actually going to use the shell. Let the whites just flow right in there. And then just move your yolk back and forth between the 2. And then once you're done, toss it and grab your next one. Sometimes when you do this, you will get a little shell. That's not uncommon. I'll show you a little trick because I'll bet this one I'm going to get some shell. I'm getting shells out of your egg whites. So we just want the egg whites, not the yolks. And you sometimes have to jiggle it a little bit. And then last but not least, try this one out. And you're just going to separate. You can also use your hands directly if you want to have a little more fun. I like to use the shells though. The egg yolk likes to be in the shell, so it just kind of naturally goes in there. Now, if you were to get egg shell in your whites, you actually just use the egg shell that's not falling apart and you scoop it right out. The eggshell is attracted to the eggshell and it comes right out. It's the easiest way to do it. Now, our hands are full of eggs. Do make certain to wash them. I'm going to kind of do a half wash here real quick. But normally you'd want to do like a full 20-second sing happy birthday twice wash. So once we've got that in there, we're going to pop it on our stand mixer. I am using the paddle attachment and not the whisk. So you might think the whisk makes more sense for icing, but we don't want to whip up meringue like you see on Great British Baking Show. We just want to get it going and get a little bit of bubbles. So I'm going to turn it on, put it on about medium speed. And hopefully you can hear me. This is where your lemon juice comes in. I don't really measure. I just squeeze it twice. It's about right. The lemon juice adds a nice little flavor. And you'll be surprised how many people go, oh, that's a different flavor. And you get a lot of compliments with just a little bit of lemon juice. So as it's whisping around in here, it starts to build bubbles and it'll start to froth, kind of like the top of a coffee if you're making one of those fancy whipped coffees. When you get to you see a little more white and a little more yellow, hopefully you can start to see the bubbles in there. That's about the time we want to add our sugar. So we're just using powdered sugar here. I'm going to take it down because I don't want powdered sugar all over on it. And we're just going to scoop it right in. And you see, you can still see it. And then take it up to like a 2 or a 4. And it'll start to incorporate a little. And then you take it back down. And put more in. So you're going to kind of go back and forth. And sometimes, I don't know if you can see right over here, we've got some sugar that's not going down in the bowl. If you just smack it a few times, it'll pop right down. Use the last little bit of sugar in here. And then we're going to go really old school. Just use the bag directly, no measuring needed. You can see it's all snowy inside there. Slowly build it up. Again, smack the side a couple times. We'll pop right down. And we're looking for a consistency that is runny, but doesn't like draw all over the place. It doesn't like flop around, right? You're dancers, you get when I make this movement, right? So we're gonna keep mixing, and it'll actually start to change from like a clear yellow to actually white, and that's when you're on the right track. I'm gonna add some more. And this is really, again, I don't measure, this is by kind of sight, because we're gonna stick our finger in there, have a little fun, get a little dirty, to get the right consistency. Ooh, we're almost there. And if you can see on the top guy, I hope you can see it kind of makes like almost like a flower inside there. You can see holes. That tells you that it's starting to stick together, which is what we want. So we're gonna test it here. Pop it open. And you can see hopefully that it's a little bit runny. So I'm just gonna stick my finger in it. And you can see it's kind of hanging on there. I'm gonna flip it over. And when you flip it over, it should kind of pool on your finger. So you should, hopefully you guys can see that. It's kind of pooling on my finger, but it's not running off my finger, right? You can see on the mixer, it's running off, but it's not like coming off like crazy. So that's about the right consistency. So we're just gonna scrape the sides of our bowl down real quick and give it one last quick little mix. And this is a smidge bit stiffer than I would like it to be. So I am actually gonna add about a teaspoon of water. You don't wanna add much more than that, or else you have to put in more sugar. Make certain that's locked on there. Nope. There we go. One last little mix. There we go. And so now we have some pretty stiff, but runny. I don't know why it's been like this. Every now and again, it likes to get stuck. We're just gonna pull it out and pull a swap. So when you see the really fancy cookies online, a lot of times you're seeing that flooding icing in a lot of detail. And what they've done is they've piped borders and then they've flooded the inside of the borders with this frosting. We're gonna do that here in a minute, but first I'm gonna show you kind of my hack to making your life a little bit faster and easier. So I've got some cookies that are undecorated here. And I'm gonna show you with my snowflake cookie how I do this. So you're gonna just turn it upside down and plop it in. Then we're gonna pull it back up and we're gonna kind of take the back, the flat side of our spatula, about 1/4 inch away from the cookie and just scrape it off a little bit. Let me show you. We've got a couple cookies here to practice. Push it down in there. Again, your fingers are gonna get a little dirty. Sometimes you gotta like twist it up and then you just scrape it right off. And so now I have a white snowflake. Let's try that one more time. This is kind of the fun part because you get a little messy, but it's messiness you can eat. And so then we're gonna twist it up and scrape it right off. And so again, we have our flooded icing. Now, if it's a little funny in one spot, like this spot's a little naked and this spot's a little heavy, because it moves, you can just move it around and it'll flatten itself out a little later as it sits. I'm gonna do that on 2 more. While I'm doing that, any questions so far? No? Okay. We'll keep going. And then sometimes if you're making the cookies for only your family you live with, you can lick your fingers. If you're giving them away, you should use a wet paper towel. But if you live with them, you already share germs with them. So, germs. Okay, so we've got some flooded snowflakes ready to go. Pretty simple. I'm going to show you another flooding technique with my ornaments, but I'm also going to grab, so earlier today I made red flood icing. So it's got a similar consistency, but it's red. And we're going to do kind of a combo. We're going to mix the two together. And I want to make certain I have my toothpick before we get started. There we go. So I'm going to dip my ornament in the white. And I'm going to pull it out and scrape it. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my red flood and I'm going to put some on the ornament. So hopefully you guys can see this. So I'm going to just put 2 lines straight across. And then I'm just going to take my toothpick and I'm going to draw lines in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to go the other way. Whoop. And now I have a chevron cookie. Hopefully you guys can see that chevron that we made. So you just mixed your 2 flood icings together while they were both liquid. So royal icing will harden. It's actually like considered the glue of the pastry world. That's what you use if you're building a gingerbread house. It'll hold it together like you wouldn't believe. So it does eventually harden, but you got to give it a little time to do that. So you've got about 10 minutes before it starts to form a film and you can't really do anything with it. So let's do that one more time. I'm going to show you a slightly different design. We're going to scrape it there. I'm going to put a couple more lines on it this time. If you're making Halloween cookies, this is a fun way to make spider webs. And then I'm just going to swirl. And now I have some beautiful swirled ornaments. And then last but not least, one of my favorites. Again, we're just flooding it. And when you flood your cookie, that's the perfect time to add your sprinkles. So I'm going to pick some Hanukkah themed ones and put them right there on my ornament. A little extra sugar. Doing this on a cookie sheet makes for easy cleanup, Mom and Dad. So there we go. We've got some different ways to flood our cookies and things to do with them. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to show you how to make piping frosting from our flooded frosting. So we still have frosting left in here. I'm going to scrape the sides of my bowl down real quick. Okay, there we go. And grab my mixer again. And we're just going to add more flour. Oh. Is my internet back up now? Okay. Every now and again. Okay, so we put our frosting, our flood frosting back in, locking down and we're going to add some more sugar and start mixing. So piping frosting is what you see like when you watch the Great British Bake Off and they talk about stiff peaks on their meringue, right? That's the same. We're going to go for stiff peaks. We're going to go for medium stiff peaks here. And that's going to make certain that your cookies hold their shape when you use different tips on your frosting. So we just added a little more sugar. And again, you can see it kind of has some holes in it. That means, again, it's solid. It's sticking together. Let's check it. Still a little too liquidy. I'll show you why in a minute. We don't want to add too much sugar at a time because, again, if you go too far, you got to add a little water or you can add another egg white if you go really too far. I'm gonna add just a smidgen of water here. And let's see, it's looking pretty good. Oh, there we go. So you see how it's hanging off and it's not really going anywhere? So then again, you stick your finger in it, turn it upside down, and I have a mountain on my finger. Okay? That is how you decorate, because that mountain then is gonna harden that way. So when you make cookies, like the wreath we're gonna make later, this is 3-dimensional. You can see that. Can't quite tell if you can see that. It's 3-dimensional, but you can see all the nooks and crannies because I had the detailed in the frosting. The frosting was nice and stiff, okay? So that's what we want when we wanna make detail so it stays there. If you're using frosting from the store, I recommend just getting it, putting it in a bowl and mixing it with a little extra powdered sugar, because the stuff from the store is a little watery and that'll solve your problem. So we're gonna load our piping bag. Loading piping bags with their own adventure. You can use piping bags like I've got from Michael's, or you can use a plastic bag. If you're gonna use a plastic bag, if you've got little hands, use a sandwich size bag. If you got mom and dad size hands, you can use a gallon size bag, but you don't wanna overfill it either way. So the first thing you're gonna do is put your metal tip down inside the bag. You kind of wanna squish it down to a corner. If you're using a plastic bag, just pick a corner. And you wanna trim it so that you're just barely trimming it near the tip. You don't wanna trim way up here. You wanna trim nice and low. And then you kind of push it out of the way and actually cut it off. And then you can push it right out of the bag. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. I am gonna actually use what is called a tip couple. You guys, these were not on the list, but you can buy like 4 of them, I think are $1.50 or something at Michael's. It allows you, once you've got the plastic piece in there, to change out your tips on your color. And you do have to trim your plastic bag a little bit more. So this way I don't have to have a bag for every tip, because I have hundreds of tips. You guys probably don't, and you don't really need hundreds of tips. So now for your bag, you don't want to fill it to the top. Like if we fill it to the top, you're just not gonna be able to control it. This thing gets heavy fast. So you actually want to fold it in half. So if you have a Ziploc bag, same thing, like fold the zip side down so it's about half the size. And then you're gonna hold close to your tip, but kind of underneath the bag. So the bag's on outside your hand. Your hand's now covered in plastic. You could use it as a glove. I'm gonna pull this guy out. Okay, you just fill it, kind of push it in there. Again, show it who's boss, just like the egg. You push it down in there. It's gonna create a couple air bubbles. They happen. It's not the end of the world. And the key to your piping bag is to not overfill it. You're gonna wanna be like, but Elizabeth, there's so much more space inside my bag. I could fit so much more icing. No, don't do it. It ends up exploding on your arm. Trust me. So you want it nice and flat. You don't want like a big mound. And then we're gonna shake it so it folds down. So you're gonna put one hand here, and shake. So you can see I still have a lot of bag without frosting in it. Then I'm gonna take my L of my other hand, my right hand. So if you're right-handed, use your right hand. If you're left-handed, use your left hand, because whichever side you write with is probably the side you want to decorate with. Stick it right inside there, squeeze, and twist. Okay, now we're ready. Okay, now I am also, before we actually start decorating, gonna make one more color, and I'm gonna show you a little trick to make good colors. We are gonna make a little golden yellow. So I've still got some white frosting in here, and we've got some gel coloring. I've got yellow and I've got orange. So most of the color is gonna be yellow because I want my star to be yellow. And clearly this has been upside down. And then I use a knife, just a butter knife, instead of a toothpick. I like a little more coloring inside my color. I like it to be bright and vibrant. So you just take a chunk, and I actually just kind of smear it right there on the paddle. Once your knife touches your sugar, don't use it again. Use a new one. Because otherwise it does exactly what happened here. Clearly I put a sugary knife in here at one point and it gloops up. It's no good. And then you ruin it and you can't use it again. So we're gonna mix the yellow just a little. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's coming bright yellow. And that's a lovely color. We could totally use bright yellow to be the star on the top of our Christmas tree. But I also want to use it for my snowman's nose. So I want it to be a little bit more golden. So I'm going to use my orange for that. So we got nice and yellow. And fresh, clean knife. And just a smidgen of orange. So last time we did a giant gloop. This time we're doing just a little. I'm actually going to put a little bit back. And again, just kind of wipe it on there. And that's all you need. So by using two colors, we get a better depth of our color. Our color is actually going to look less like I took it out of a Crayola pack and more like a real color you'd see in the world. So in the green that we made for our Christmas tree and our wreaths, this is a mixture of Kelly green and juniper green. For the red, it's actually no taste red. Always use no taste red, and a smidgen of the juniper green. So you always want to add just another color to give it a little flavor in a sense. Not a physical flavor, or like colorful flavor. Okay. So see how it's much more golden now than it is yellow? So it's a much more useful color, and it's got a little more visual depth. So I'm gonna load up one more bag, and then we'll get to the decorating. So this one I'm gonna put a star tip on. So when you're looking at all the fancy tips that you can buy at the store, a star tip in this case is a number 224. So they all have different numbers on them. And the star tip is going to make a really great star for our Christmas tree topper. There we go. We don't need a ton of yellow, so we'll just put a little bit in there. Okay. Okay, so this should be more than enough yellow. We will push that out of the way. Scooch a little over here. Like a little frosting. And again, we're just twisting and squeezing until we get a little bit of frosting coming out the end there. Okay, so we have our frostings. We are ready to start decorating. I'm gonna push a few things out of your way here so you can actually see what I am decorating. So we have got our ornaments. They're pretty much ready to go on the white ones. We're gonna do our snowflakes. So the first thing with snowflakes is that no two are the same. So remember, bring your creativity, bring some sprinkles, have a little fun. Also, these, while are up for contests, are also edible art. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is you get to eat them. So don't stress if they don't look perfect, okay? So I'm gonna show you one of my go-to designs for a snowflake. So when you're squeezing your bag, again, you're putting the edge in the L of your dominant hand. And if you are right-handed, you're gonna be kind of facing left-handed, you're down here at 7 o'clock. Now, some lefties like to go this way, so you can also do it up here at 10 o'clock. So depending on what kind of lefty you are, but I'm a righty, so I'm gonna stick over here. And that's gonna be where I apply my pressure from, is actually right in here. So we're gonna get a hand workout in. And even if you're using a plastic bottle, you still wanna, especially if it's the long skinny ones, you still wanna kind of do the same thing. And then you'll see with my other hand, I'm using it to stabilize. So I'm not putting any pressure on, I'm not directing it, I'm literally just keeping it from kind of wobbling around. So the other hand's just a stabilizer. The other thing that's really important, I like to stand when I decorate. You can totally sit, but I like to stand. I lock my arms in and I kind of become a little bit of a T-Rex, okay? I don't move past the elbow. If I need to move forward, I lean forward. If I need to pull the thing back, I lean back. So I use my whole body to decorate. So it's sort of like creating a dance while decorating your cookies. So we're gonna start at the one corner and press until we get some frosting coming out. And then we're just gonna press, 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 and pull. Again, you'll see I'm twisting there. So I'm not just using my hand, I'm using my whole body. It's much more stable that way. This guy's a little thick, so I'm gonna squeeze with both hands. Never be afraid to do that. And I'm just crisscrossing. Again, I'm still only applying pressure with my right hand. And when you're piping, you press, 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 stop. Let go. Okay. And in this case, I'm going to stick a little sprinkle right there in the center of my snowflake. And then I like to give him some arms. But you could also do polka dots. So maybe over here, we're going to give it some polka dots to match. And then maybe these arms are really long. And honestly, snowflakes are a really great time to use sprinkles. I've got some white sprinkles over here to throw on top. And you can see that when it's not on the new frosting, it's rolling right off. That's because of that sheen that the royal icing made. Okay, so it's no longer going to stick to this. It's only going to stick to the new frosting. So if you want to use them on the main, you got to do it as soon as you dip them, like we did on the ornament. Okay, because this stuff hardens over and eventually become pretty darn hard. So that's why when you guys were biting into my cookies last year, you got the softness and the hard. The softness was the cookie tip. I underbaked them by a minute. And the hard was from the royal icing. So it gives you kind of a nice dichotomy. Okay. And then we're going to do a little candy cane work. So we've got our snowflake is totally decorated. But I'm going to switch to my candy cane. So on my candy cane, I'm going to do that flooding that you see when you're on Instagram. When you see on Instagram, they do the really fast ones and they draw the outline and then they fill it in on the inside. That's flooding. And you need 2 different icings for that. So I've got one red that is my detail piping red, and I've got one, and I literally marked flood on it. So I'm gonna make certain they're both tips are cleaned out because I used these earlier today. So you want nice clean tips. You can do that by just sticking your toothpick in there, bouncing it around a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna take my detail icing and I'm gonna just draw my candy cane stripes. So again, when I'm doing this, I'm holding my elbows are in, and I lean back, I lean forward, I lean to the left. And sometimes those little gaps happen because of air bubbles. You just trace right over top of them again. And we're gonna do that again. Lean down, left, We'll come back and fill that hole. And then sometimes it's really hard to go up when you're using icing. So you can stop with your little three-sided shape here and come back up and pull down. Sometimes that's easier to do. So again, we're gonna come across. Ooh, we got all kinds of air bubbles in this frosting. So now you kind of see where my red spots are gonna be. Then I'm gonna take my flooding icing and I'm gonna squeeze it to make certain that it's nice and full and twist it one more time. We wanna make certain there's some pressure there. And then you're just gonna fill it in. So you're gonna color. And you don't have to be perfect because the flood icing is gonna level itself out. So I always just kind of do a rough draft. And then you'll see, okay, well, I've got a few holes here, a few holes there. So you're gonna take a toothpick or a fork, edge of a fork, and you just kind of swirl it around to fill in those holes. So we're gonna fill those holes in. And again, if you wanna use sprinkles, now's the time to use your sprinkles. Well, it's still nice and wet. And it'll take your frost, it'll hold on to them. And you'll see how it's already leveled back out. Even though I'm making a big old mess inside these spots, it still leveled itself out. And I'm gonna grab a done one so you can see what it'll look like in the end. So this is what it looks like right now, fresh, and then this is what it looks like after it's dry. So after it's dry, you'll see it's totally filled in. It's nice and hard. You can even see some stiff peaks. So my icing was good and hard. And so now it is all ready to go with my white frosting. Now you may have noticed this one just cracked. Two things when that happens. And I have two pieces of cookie. One, sometimes those are just the sacrifices we as bakers have to make and we have to eat that cookie. Or we talked about earlier, that royal icing is the glue of the pastry world. So the other option, if you're like, oh, but that cookie is nearly perfect, Elizabeth, I was gonna submit it to the contest. You can do this instead. Take your white and just kind of fill it in there. Doesn't have to be, it's kind of like in class when they teach you with glue, just a dot, not a lot. Just a small little line there. And push them back together. And no one will be the wiser. Trust me, I have mailed cookies to Minnesota that have had that crack and they've survived. So once that royal icing hardens, which does take a full 12 hours for it to be that rock solid, that cookie will never separate. So now to do the other part, I'm gonna show you a slightly different technique, but you can use whichever one you like. So this one just involves using the white that has no flood. So we're not gonna use any flood here. I'm still gonna outline my white sections for my candy cane. But then instead of putting flood inside, which you can totally do, if that's what you wanna do and you're comfortable with, go for it. But if you're like, oh, having so many frostings is too hard, Elizabeth, you can just use the one and then you just zigzag it. This time you do have to be really careful. And it's gonna create a slightly different look. So that's why I might not use them on the same cookie, but I'm gonna show you here. And you see how it's kind of got like a pattern to it. So it feels a little bit like a sweater. So especially if you're making ugly Christmas sweater cookies, which I do, that's a great way to draw on. So again, I'm gonna do my white section here. And I'm gonna zigzag. I also normally have what's called a cookie turntable. So if you get really into this, they make these little 4x4 glass cookie turntables so you can turn it around and see it from every side. Mine are just in storage at the moment. Okay, last section, we almost got it totally done. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this. Okay. You can do it a different direction if you want. So you get different textures depending on the direction you zigzag. Now, if you don't like the zigzag look, that's when you can take a spatula or a knife and just spread it out inside there. So it's totally up to you. And ta-da, we have a candy cane. I'll leave it on the tray so you guys can see that. So you can see the kind of two different textures we've got going on there, the one with the flood and the one with the zigzag. So again, it kind of depends on how much work you want to put into making your frosting. So if you don't have the two different textures, I recommend the zigzag. And then if you wanted to, you could just take a butter knife and you could just kind of smooth that out there if you didn't like the texture. So that's an option as well. It's just being a little difficult in that one spot, isn't it? There we go. So you've got two different, you see there, it's kind of smooth now. And if you have an offset spatula from like when you make cupcakes, that's even better. But that's optional. You can always use a butter knife. Any questions? Okay, y'all look very intent, which I love seeing. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys how to make my Christmas wreath. This is my dad's favorite cookie because it has the most frosting. Let's be clear, it's only his favorite because it has the most frosting. I'm gonna take a couple of these off so they're out of our way. Notice it's already holding up, the one we glued back together. Still got to be a little careful with it. Okay, so I've got some green frosting. Again, you can only do this if you are living with the people you're giving the cookie to. But it's sugar, so your saliva will totally melt it if it gets stuck. So what we've got here is, this is a number 5 star tip. Hopefully you guys can kind of see that. See that? So we're going to use this to make our wreath. So for reference, that's what our wreath looks like. And we already have the shape here and then a bow here. So we're going to start by making the peaks of our wreath. And it's pretty easy. So you're going to put it down, touch your cookie, and then pick it back up just a smidgen and press and release and pull up. So hopefully you can see that. Touch your cookie, lift up, press, release, pull up. And you're going to do that a couple more times. So touch, lift, press, release, pull up. And I do it really fast. If you practice this a whole bunch and you make 1,000 cookies every Christmas for 15 years, you'll get much faster. So now we have our Christmas wreath. You do want to let that harden. Again, we talked about earlier, it takes a few minutes to do that. So I'm actually going to use this one I made earlier. And we need to put things on our Christmas wreath. It's not done. So we need berries, right? I know I have berries on my Christmas wreath. So I'm going to take my white my red that I was using earlier to make the outlines on my candy canes. I'm going to use the exact same tip, not going to change it or anything. And now we're just going to make dots. So again, press and release and pull up. Press and release and pull up. Now, one of the things that you may be able to see here is that because of the shape of the star, it's got all kinds of nooks and crannies. So I like to find the different nooks and crannies and put my berries in those nooks and crannies. But you also have to not forget your outside and not forget your inside. So we're gonna kind of put them random all over the place. So again, to make the dots, because dots are actually one of the harder things to make, you're gonna put your nozzle right next to where you want it to be, but not at the spot. And then you're gonna push for just a second. Again, we haven't moved our bag, and then pull up. If you pull up you're gonna end up with something that's trying to grow up and look like a Santa hat. We don't want a Santa hat. We want little round dots that look like berries. So you gotta let go before you pull up. Push, squeeze, let go, pull up. Push, squeeze, let go, pull up. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're gonna put a bunch of those dots all over. Turn your cookie around. And now we have almost a completed wreath. So we have our wreath and our berries, but we do not have a bow. So to make a bow, we're gonna switch nozzles. This is why I like the little couples. So I'm gonna use a ribbon nozzle. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see it. So it's kind of looks like a teardrop. One side is wider than the other side. It's a Wilton 101. And we're just gonna unscrew, switch, put the new one on, and we are ready to make our ribbon. To make our ribbon, we're gonna put the top, the widest part of the teardrop at the top, facing like towards the camera in this case, and the tiniest point facing you. And you're gonna hold it at 3 o'clock or at 2 o'clock. So not down here, either here or here, okay? And hopefully you guys will be able to see this. I'm trying to stay out of the way. We're gonna draw a loop, another loop, a ribbon, and a ribbon. So let me do it here on the, so we're gonna draw a loop, another loop, a ribbon, and a ribbon, so that we get our little bow. So it's sort of like when you tie your shoes with the bunnies, with the bunny ears. So we're gonna make each of our bunny ears, those are your two sides, and then we're gonna make a frontward facing J and a backwards facing J, okay? So we're gonna go 1 rabbit ear, 2 rabbit ears, J, J. And now you have a bow. So one of the fun things to do is to play with the different nozzles. That's really helpful. Or just use different widths of circles. So cut different holes in your plastic bag. That's another option as well. If you don't have tips, that's totally fine. So this is how you make the wreath. So again, I'm going to show you one more time here on this guy. We're going to make our 1 rabbit ear. You can even do the J right then if you want. 1 rabbit ear and J, so that you have your bow. And if you wanted to leave it plain like that, you totally could. Simple and understated. So now we've got our wreaths done. So we've got our wreaths done. We've done our snowflake. We've done some funky ornaments. We've done our candy cane. We still have other ornaments and our Christmas tree. So in your other ornaments, this is where you can just have a lot of fun. Like I might do just my initials, because I know on our family Christmas tree, there are ones that I've made all over the place. So doing my initials on a Christmas ornament, I think my mom will love. And then maybe I want to take the sprinkles and see if I can get any of them to stick in there. If you want to get real fancy, you can get out the tweezers. I'm not that fancy. And then we'll see if any of them, oh good, a couple of them stuck. So you can just have some fun with those. And then last but not least is our Christmas tree. Oh. And our snowman, I almost forgot our snowman. Okay, hold on, we'll do our snowman. So our snowman we're gonna do with the Wilton cookie icing, which I find to be a little liquidy. So again, this is something that I would totally normally mix with a little extra powdered sugar. It says on the back that you can heat it up to get your different consistencies. I have a feeling that's once it's kind of hardened a little, so like not when it's brand new, because when it's brand new, it's a little watery. I always like to test it. Baking sheets are great for that because they go right in the dishwasher. So I'm gonna make my snowman's hat here. I'm gonna just let that roll off. That's totally fine. He's wearing a black top hat. It can roll around. And I'll use my toothpick to kind of fill in a little bit here. So he's got his top hat on. You can kind of see that there. And then he needs some eyes. I'll put those 2 dots there. And then he needs his coal buttons. So again, we're just kind of, I'm not even pushing on the bottle with this stuff. I'm literally just tapping it down. Another great time to use sprinkles because this stuff will hold the sprinkle right in place. And then we're going to use our yellow gold. Now I have the star on for the Christmas tree, so I'm going to change this nozzle. I'm looking for one that hasn't been used and I'm not seeing one. So let me grab another nozzle real fast. This is what happens when you become obsessed. You buy the giant Wilton nozzle holder. For noses, I think we're going to go with a number 2. Oh, that's number 3. And we're going to kind of use a technique really similar to our candy canes. So again, we're going to hold it, dominant hand, and I'm going to squeeze it. I'm going to make a carrot shape. So the base is wider. Than the top. So I kind of zigzagged it. I made an upside down triangle. So let me do it a little bigger here so you can see it. So I kind of start here and we just go until it's smaller. Hopefully you can see that. Again, cookie sheets are great for practice. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this guy. We will do a Christmas tree on this tray, full of other Christmas trees. So normally I make about 1,000 Christmas cookies a year. Not this year. And I start that in October. The baking is done in October and the decorating starts in November. I love to use cookie sheets as a great way to decorate because I can put a whole bunch of them on there and I can do kind of an assembly line. So I'm going to show you. So how I might do that. So with my tree, and again, the tree is the best place to have some fun. So I might want to put some white garland on. And again, those little missing parts, those will happen. Just come back. No one will be bothered by that. They want to eat your yummy cookie. And there we go. We got a little garland on. And then I can go to the next cookie and do the same thing. So again, I can start at the top there. And I'm just making like swoops. So I'm pausing at the corner and letting the icing kind of pile up a little bit right there before I change directions. And it's a Christmas tree, right? So it should be organic. It should be fun. It shouldn't be identical, like unless you're starting a cookie business, but I don't think any of us are doing that today. I also think the black is a great option. So what if you decide, you know what, I don't always put garland on my personal Christmas tree, but I always have C7 light bulbs. My family will tell you there's an obsession with C7 light bulbs. So you could use the black to be your Christmas light wire and do the same thing, right? And now on the ones with the white garland, I'm going to put some ornaments in the form of different red dots. But on my black one, I want to make them look like lights. I'm actually going to switch frosting. Here we go. So let's put that nozzle back on. You have to also keep track of your nozzles. That's hard. Okay. So I'm going to kind of make like a kind of an oval shape here off of my black. You guys see that? Trying not to put my head in the way. So you keep drawing your string of lights. And so you can keep drawing your Christmas tree lights on there. You can also, again, this is a really good spot for sprinkles. So I got out the gold stars. Those are silver stars. I don't know why I said gold. And some snowflakes. So there's that option. Or we can just go solid dots. Again, we're just putting a little pressure. Little pressure, pull up. Little pressure, let go, pull up. And be nice and random. Your Christmas ornaments aren't exactly so many inches apart. So now we have our different Christmas trees with the different details. But now we need a star. So we're gonna grab the yellow star tip that I was using earlier. Again, you gotta keep track of these things, guys. Woo. Oh, here it is. Nope. Let's see here. Let's get a new one. Okay. So I am using the number 5 in this case. This is a Fat Daddy number 5. Wilton also makes one. And so the key here is that you kind of want it, if you can see that. So you see it's got the star shape, but it's kind of closed up a little bit because we want that closed upness to give us kind of a hollow center so that it actually looks like a star. I'm gonna put that on. And then this one is pretty simple. You're actually gonna put it right at the top of your tree. Let's see. Put it right at the top of your tree there. Squeeze, you're still touching the cookie. Stop, pull up. And you can see that it's got 5 petals on it, just like a star. And then it's also kind of got like an opening there in the center. So I sometimes like to put a sprinkle right in the middle there. So it's just got a little character. So hopefully you guys can see that. See those different Christmas trees. So I challenge you to think outside the box and try some different decorations. And then sometimes that happens and your star part of it stays on there. Just kind of put it back down, squeeze a little. There we go. It's close enough. Again, just needs to be edible. It needs to be yummy. So those are kind of my basic cookies. I encourage you to try different things, try different frostings. Let me know what questions you have. No questions?
This is great.
I'm trying to show you all a little bit of what I do. But I think the best part about decorating Christmas cookies is the giant edible mess you get to make. Because my last tray, it had my star tip on it. As you can see, is like covered in frosting, which is all very edible. And if your hands get all covered in frosting, they're just yummy then. And then it's a lot of fun to give them as gifts. If you're gonna ship these cookies, which you can do, I recommend wrapping each one in its own cellophane before putting it in the box, which should have lots and lots of padding. But if you do that, they're less likely to break up because they don't run into each other quite so much. The cellophane actually acts as a little bit of padding. But also if they do break apart, they kind of stay together. Because I often ship these up to Minnesota where my family lives. So that would be a recommendation I have for you. Any other questions or thoughts or?
Everybody hold up a cookie if you can. Feel good about it, even if you don't.
Yeah.
Let's see the cookies. Can we take a quick with our cookies? Let's hold them up, hold them up, hold them up. Okay, right. Oh, cute. Everybody's, Luz. Wow. Aaron,
Oh, good, guys.
Phoenix, I liked yours too. Okay, everybody hold your cookies up. Ready? Count us through.
Wow.
Elizabeth, you're in trouble because I have your actual cell phone number, so I'm just gonna text you when I need help with this next time. This was so fun. This was so much fun. My mom and I are like,
Look at that
wow.
dancer. Is that the Sugar Plum Fairy or Tinkerbell? She looks awesome.
Carolina's.
Oh,
Claire,
Gosh, guys, you're so good.
I missed
I
somebody.
do not envy Anne and her daughters having to choose the winners here.
It's going to be really hard. It's
It
gonna, I have
is.
a feeling it's going to
Oh,
be
that's so cute.
so many great. Yeah.
Look at that snowman.
Luz, your cookies look so good.
Oh my gosh, guys, these are great.
Elizabeth, you did such a great job. You could have a TV show. It was awesome.
Well, thank you. Having y'all on mute, I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Always the hard part, right? Does anybody have any questions for Elizabeth? If you do, feel free to raise your hand and we can do some answers.
Answer.
Also, if we just need to eat cookies, we can do that too.
Absolutely.
No
Well,
question.
Luz, do you have a question?
Leah, how long can we store them?
How can you store them?
You can store them in the freezer for a month, or you can totally decorated, or you can store them out on the counter for about 10 days, as long as you use pasteurized eggs, so that you don't get any salmonella.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll tell you guys, I bake all my cookies in October that I give out in December, and I freeze them until I decorate them. And in November, I do all the flooding so that they're just the solid colors. And then right at Thanksgiving, like this is what I do Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving weekend, is that's when I actually do all the detail decorating. And I leave them in the freezer until I start packaging them. What other questions?
Anybody else? Any other questions?
So a couple tips if you decide to bake your own cookies. Even if you're going to not make the mix from scratch, you want it to be a little bit hard. So if you get it and it's really soft, stick it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes because you want it to be a little bit hard. If it's too soft, it'll stick to your countertop. And then roll it out to 1/4 to 1/2 inch, which is much bigger than you think it is. And the easiest way to know that, I'm going to pull out one of my tricks for you. Is go to Home Depot and get the wooden yardstick and cut it in half. It is 1/4 inch thick. So you stick it on either side of your dough, and then when you roll it out, it'll be even, so that you don't have like one side of your dough is taller than the other side. It costs 99 cents. It's also really great when you're making croissants. You kind of have to have it. So that's a trick. And then underbake them a little bit. So you'll see on, I don't have a convection oven yet, but you'll see on the bottom of all of my cookies that they're barely golden brown because I underbake them. So the recipe in this case called for 7 to 8 minutes. All of these were cooked for 6.5 to 7 minutes because my oven runs a little warm. But I started at 6 minutes and checked them every 30 seconds. And you can tell when they're done because they have just the faintest golden brown on the edges. It's kind of hard to see right here, but on the pan, you'll see just a smidgen of golden brown. And that's when you pull them out, because then they'll stay nice and soft. They won't get hard and snappy. That's what the frosting's for. So that makes them a nice dichotomy. Those are my tips for you.
Anna wants to know if you can store the icing.
You can for 10 days. You put it in the refrigerator. So normally what I do is use one of my bowls and I just stack them all up in there. All the more reason to mark your flood frosting, because then you can know that it's your flood frosting. And then I just stick this right in the refrigerator. And then you take it out, put it on the counter, separate them out. You want them to have nice surface area. And then let them sit for, depending on how hot your house is, half an hour to 2 hours, depending on what you kind of put your house at. And then you want to clean out your tips. So you can either unscrew your tips, put them in some hot water and put them back on, or you can store them without the tip. That's fine too. So you can take them and store them without the tip. And then just put fresh new tips on.
Hey, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Vandina to close us out. And I did want to ask, would everybody be comfortable, and you can message us in the chat, with us sharing this on our website and our Facebook page so that other people can learn how to make cookies for the contest? If you're okay with it, can you give me a thumbs up? Cool. If you're not okay with it, just shoot me a message, okay? Okay, great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right,
Awesome. Let's give Elizabeth one big round of applause that's slightly silent because we're on Zoom, but we know it's roaring. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We appreciate you helping kick off our winter showcase season. It means so much that we have board members who are dedicated to what we do and just want to do something fun for the family on a Saturday. Just want to close out and let everybody know I put in the chat the cookie contest form. So if you're wanting to submit while the cookies are out and you don't have to go back and think about it, take your picture, put it in there, let us know so we can get judging. And again, reminder, next Saturday at 5 p.m. is the premiere. So we're going to showcase everything you guys have been doing this semester for our holiday dance, our big completion. We're going to hear from a parent. We're going to see another duet from two of our performance company students. And then we're going to announce our cookie contest winner as a way just to finish out our season. And lastly, they're not on here right now, but thank you to Easy Peasy for partnering with us this year. If you guys are in the battleground area, they've struck a great deal with us just to help finish out our showcase. If you want to just get something, whether you keep your cookies for 10 days or you've eaten them all, you need some more, or you want some hot chocolate, or you just want some other baked goods, go in there and let them know that you're from Dance Project. And there's 2 options for you guys to get another box to try to make some more if you weren't a baker, or you can just crack at it again with what Elizabeth has given us. And then also they got hot cocoa bombs. So it's just a great opportunity to grab your mug, grab some hot cocoa, gather around the fire or the Netflix flame from the TV screen and watch Winter Showcase on YouTube. All the information can be found on our website, danceproject.org/Winter Showcase. Again, thanks guys so much. Let's give a good thank you on our way out, and have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dance Project.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Luz, I'm so proud of you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Olga.
Thank you guys for coming.
Your baby's beautiful.
Your baby's beautiful.
Thank you. God bless you guys. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, thank you. We love you. Happy holidays.